a bit on a string. Tracy Island, time traveling diamond. Could a sheep heartaches that come to find you for in some velvet morning?
Well, you know, our ownership system is divided essentially by Kroenke and Usmanov, and the board is being run by Peter Hugh Wood. A lot of people in Brazil seems to not understand really well how the president is not a major shareholder. So can you enlighten us about how things work at the top at Arsenal?
I don't think Peter Hillwood has much to do with the running of Arsenal Football Club. That he's essentially there as a figurehead for Arsenal. Like, he's just paid a retainer. He's just there as part of, I don't know, the legacy of Arsenal. The board is essentially Ivan Gazidis, really, and Stan Kroenke and Arsene Wenger. There's a lot of people say that Arsene Wenger is the CEO of Arsenal because of the control that he has, but essentially Arsenal is being run by Ivan Gazidis, really. So all of the rest of the board are just there, sort of seeing out their days, enjoying sitting in the Diamond Club. But I don't think your readers should pay too much attention to what Peter Hillwood is doing at the club.
So Ivan Gazidis essentially is running the club alongside with Wenger, but who has the control of this decision making about football? So is all Wenger?
It's all Arsene Wenger. Arsene Wenger has control over transfers, wage budgets, playing staff. I've heard that he even gets involved with who's staffed at the club and the press office. So he is the ultimate dictator at Arsenal.
So you're talking about wages, and something you always like to talk in your blog about. So how would you reckon a wage structure is managed by Wenger?
I think it's managed in an idealistic way. Arsene Wenger's got this idea that the top player can't earn too much more than the sort of bottom player in the squad. So we've got bad players being paid too much, and then we've got the great players who don't get paid enough. So you get the situation where players like Johan Giroud and Shamak and Schillaci will never leave because teams can't afford their salaries, and then because we bloated out our wage bills so much at the bottom end, when a player like Robin van Persie comes up for contract renewal and he wants £200,000 a week, we can't afford it. Not because the money's not there, but because it's so badly spent at the bottom end. I mean, I think our wage bill is 11% short of what Manchester United did, and bearing in mind they've got a much bigger commercial team, they'll be paying out much higher win bonuses. So if we had a wage bill that was structured in like the more traditional sense, like aspirational salaries, like Manchester United have. I think Wes Brown never earned more than 15,000 a week at United, whereas someone like Schillaci is probably on 50, 60k. If we structured it in the way that Manchester United did, then we could afford to have a player on £220,000 a week. So we're kind of a victim of Arsene Wenger and his idealism, and we're running into this problem again. We've just given Aaron Ramsey reportedly £60,000 a week. We've given Chamberlain £52,000 a week, Gibbs £52,000 a week, and Jenkinson £35,000 a week. Now that's fine if those guys go on to greater things, but then if Aaron Ramsey does become the next Steven Gerrard, he'll want another pay rise. And then will we be able to afford that pay rise because of all the rest of them? And then if Aaron Ramsey doesn't fulfil his potential because he's not a £60,000 a week football player, you're left with a player who won't leave because he won't get £60,000 a week elsewhere. I mean, you do have the added benefit of British players. Generally, I don't think as a group of people we're the sort that would sit on a really big salary. Like, Brits like to play football, and I think he'd be frowned upon by society.
Doing a bridge?
Yeah, but Wayne Bridge absolutely hated in the UK by football fans up and down the country because of what he's done. He's a hate figure. Like, as far as I'm concerned, he's there with Ashley Cole. Like, people despise a person who's been given the opportunity to play football and do something they love every day, and he's not interested. He just wants to hang out with his pop star girlfriend. I don't think there's many British players that would do that. So we would be able to sell Aaron Ramsey, I'd hope, but I just don't understand the concept of giving players who haven't really made it huge contracts, because what you're doing is you're just bribing them. You're bribing them to stay on, and you're paying them on potential rather than what they've done. Jenkinson, what has he played? 10 good games this season, and he gets a new contract. Chamberlain, has Chamberlain played any more than 2 good games? I think he played well against...
played well at Derby when he got in.
Yeah, but he played...
But
like, to get an uplift to £52,000 a week, how many assists has he got? How many goals has he got? We're rewarding him in the hope that he becomes good. And that's exactly what we did with Theo Walcott. It took 7 years, and for me, he's still not that player that we'd hoped he was going to be. And now he wants £100,000 a week, because we've given him huge contracts the whole way through his career. Why wouldn't he expect £100,000 a week? Why wouldn't he expect £100,000 a week if you're paying Aaron Ramsey 60? But he's a much better player than Aaron Ramsey. So I'm not a fan of our wage structure, and I just worry that if we continue this strategy of paying average players really good money, when the next manager comes in, we'll have a big problem, because we won't be able to get rid of these players again.
Yeah, we were talking about idealism with Wenger, and he always says he likes to be to show the canvas to the players and let their talents run through. And how do you think that approach on tactics affects our team?
I think when you've got the best players in the world, like we did in 2004, 2002, I mean, one of the best squads the Premiership's ever seen, Gilberto, Vieira, Perez, Lundberg, you can afford to let them do what they like, because they're all champions, like they're all gladiators on the pitch. They all know what it is to win, and then they've got a back four that is tried and tested, knows what it is to muck in on a rainy day up north. But I think when you bring through young players who don't know how to win, they've got talent, they've got technique, you need to give them that little bit extra, that extra 10%. And Arsene Wenger hasn't moved with the times. Like he doesn't really pay too much attention to what the opposition are doing. He won't change things around in a game. He's rigid and stuck to a structure regardless of what players he's got going into it. And that's why he's being overtaken by managers with far less resource, because the young managers coming through all use video analysis. They're all using their GPS to the maximum ability. They've all got super fit players, and they will understand how to play a system. So whereas we could beat teams on quality before, and we're still doing that, obviously, we finished third in the Premiership, but when we're not there form-wise, things quickly go down the pan, because we've got teams that are as fit as us now and have a system and know how to play around us. I don't think we're too predictable. And I think Arsene Wenger's approach to tactics and his whole approach to management is in the dark ages compared to other managers that are coming through. So I hope that Steve Bold will come in and freshen up the backroom staff, but as you know, all the reports that are coming out of the papers are that he's not being afforded any sort of input, and that's a real shame, because Arsene Wenger can't do it all on his own, and if he wants to do it on his own, we'll never win a trophy again, as far as I'm concerned.
We were talking about wage structure and how the money is made available. So, how do you think Wenger has control about the money that's in the bank that we don't spend?
What? Do I think he has the money to spend?
Does he have access to the money that's there, that we know it's there?
Yeah, I absolutely believe that he's got access. The rumoured amount of money, well, it's not rumoured, it's kind of pretty accurate, but they say that there's £70 million worth of uncommitted funds that could potentially be available for spending on players. Now, as far as I've been told, he doesn't have access to the full 70 million, but he'll have access to a large portion of that money. And the fact that he chooses not to spend it is down to him. I don't for 1 second believe that the board are just saying, no, you can't spend any money, and that's what makes our situation all the more perplexing. If we knew we were going to sell Robin van Persie in the summer, we should have made moves for another striker. Giroud was never going to be a replacement for Robin van Persie. You can't take League One's top goal scorer and expect him to do what Robin van Persie did. We're still missing that sort of Patrick Vieira player that we've been missing for years. I don't think Son was ever that guy. I still don't think that we've got a goalkeeper that merits being Arsenal #1 at the moment. There's holes all over the squad, and Arsene Wenger refuses to address them. Arsene Wenger said that he had money to spend last summer. He said that we could compete with Chelsea 2 seasons ago. You can't say on the one hand we can compete with Chelsea and then not spend the money, and it'll probably be the same this January. He says that he's going to be busy, but will he actually be busy? Will he go out and make those signings, or will he opt for Thierry Henry and hope that he can get through to the summer and then get more bargains? But Wenger has control of the money. I absolutely believe that he's got substantial funds to go at the market with. I just don't think he wants to do it, and I don't know why he's so insistent on making things hard for himself. But actually, when you look back to when he was winning trophies, he still always did it on a really small squad. But I think he kind of got a bit lucky having players that weren't particularly injury prone. Now we're resting a whole season on players like Abu Diaby and even Kieran Gibbs to a certain degree. He's our first choice left back, but he rarely strings more than 5 games together. And then when you start picking up the injuries, because you've got nobody that sits below those players, you get real problems. Like, we don't have a striker outside Giroud. I know Theo Walcott's being moved in there, but he's not really a striker. We're playing him there because he's going to leave if we don't. And again, that's a pretty bad situation to be in as a club. Theo Walcott being his star man, which just shows how much we've regressed over the last 4 or 5 years. Every season we chip away a little bit more, and this season we could lose the best right back in the country and one of England's hot talents that we've waited 7 years to get anything out of, and now we're starting to see the fruits of Wenger's hard work on turning him into something that resembles a footballer, and then he could be off to Manchester City or United or whoever will pay him £100,000 a week and play him centrally.
So you talk about the holes in the squad. You think he doesn't see them, or he just doesn't want to address them because he's happy with the group he has now?
I don't know why he doesn't. I think Arsene Wenger likes to do things the clever way. I think if you gave Arsene Wenger the choice of a Premiership proven striker who would get you 18 goals a season for £20 million, or he could have an £8 million striker from an outback league somewhere in Eastern Europe that might get him 25 goals a season after 3 seasons, he'd always go for the player he could develop. I don't think he likes making the obvious signing. Like, the obvious signing for me this January would be Demba Ba. He's played 50-60 games without picking up serious injury. He scored 27 goals. He's played across 3 clubs and delivered across all 3 of those clubs, and he cost £7.5 million. He's the obvious Premiership proven striker, but Arsene Wenger won't go for him. I highly doubt he will anyway. I might be proven wrong there. I don't know, but he never goes for the obvious players. Like in the summer, Newcastle's Cabaye, £20 million you could sign him for. He's the French box-to-box midfielder. He absolutely tears up the Premiership. He's probably the best box-to-box midfielder in the Premiership.
Better than Fellaini?
He's up there. They're close. I mean, Fellaini this season's gone to new levels. But again, like Fellaini, a really obvious player to go for. He's playing for a club that have 0 money to spend. They've got a £50 million wage bill. Like, he'd cost us £30 million. He's 23 years old. He's been dominant in the Premiership for years. He could be that sort of Diaby, Vieira type figure. I mean, he's better than Diaby, don't get me wrong, but he's too obvious. So instead we'll try and rummage around Europe and find a player that Wenger can say that he unearthed, rather than just going for we've got 70 million in the bank, let's take a punt on it's not even a punt, it's an educated punt on a player who's already doing it in the league.
So now we got a new Emirates contract, and we probably will get some good money out of Adidas or Nike, who knows. in the next few days or years to 2014, and those contracts Gazidis always told about, they finally got through. And how do you think that would change the way Arsenal spends money, and how that might change the perception of the most Arsenal supporters have on Wenger if it doesn't spend?
I don't think the contract's going to change the way Arsene Wenger operates. I'd be very surprised if we ever saw a £25 million signing from Arsene Wenger. But what the new contracts do is they put us on a different level to most other clubs. Like, we're generating 50, 60 million pounds profit a year potentially that could go on players. So we're in a great position with the new TV money coming in as well. I think what the new contracts do is they make us a very appealing proposition for a world-class manager to come in after Arsene Wenger. I mean, the talk about Pep Guardiola, a lot of people say, why would he come to Arsenal? Well, you've got huge contracts coming in, you've got a 60,000 seat stadium that's filled every week, you've got the best training facilities in the world, you've got a youth setup that's been in place for 15 years now, and you get time. And a manager could come to Arsenal and you're just looking at a sleeping giant, the top 4 for revenue generators in the world now, I think. A manager is going to come in and take us from a very low baseline, and they could make us one of the greatest clubs in the world. So I don't think the new contracts are going to mean much to Arsene Wenger. If he had 70 million to spend last summer and he didn't spend it, what makes us think he'd spend 140 million if he had it next summer? It's just not the way he does things. I think he'd almost be going against this his own philosophy by spending big. So I don't think he'd ever do that. But it means that we are in a fantastic position, and a position that teams like Spurs and even West Ham taking on the Olympic Stadium would love to be in, but they might not ever get there. So we're secure for the next 100 years as a club, but to keep those deals and to keep us on top of the game, we do need to win trophies, and we do need to have marquee players. I think that from what I understand, Nike are very take it or leave it with the Arsenal deal. There are negotiations going on, but if Arsenal say no, they're not going to break the bank to keep us, because why would you? You don't have the superstar players that teams like United and Manchester City do at the moment. So I think Arsenal have to start behaving like a football club when this money comes in. We can't keep on giving average players big contracts and have this huge wage bill without anything really to show for it. I mean, we were just talking a second ago. Who are our superstar players? Who do you get on the back of your shirt if you're a 7-year-old, at school? Like Jack Wilshere. I mean, he's the great hope, but he's not really the finished article. Cazorla, Arteta. I mean, even if you go back like 4 or 5 years ago, you had Nasri, Cesc. I mean, Robin. Yeah, I was gonna say Adebayor, but I won't. But you had big players there. I don't think we've really got that at the moment. So with the new money, I'm hoping that the sponsors are going to push us into acting more like a football club and less like a business, because brands don't buy into successful balance sheets, they buy into successful teams. And if you want to be like Manchester United and you want to have £75 million shirt sponsorship deal every season, then you have to provide those sponsors with something solid. So yeah, something solid. You have like Chevrolet. I know that they probably made a massive error signing up that shirt deal, but it shows how in demand Manchester United are, and that's because you can take your clients to a Manchester United game, and whether they've got an interest in football or not, you're taking them to one of the best. If Arsenal want to be the best, they have to start acting like the best. You have to start doing what every single successful club in Europe does, and that's spend money. Like Arsene Wenger says, spending money is not always the answer. It's not always the answer, but it's always the common denominator. Like that's the best clubs spend big money. There are virtually no examples of teams in Europe who are successful who don't spend money. The days of creating an Ajax type system are long gone. Like Barcelona have a good policy of bringing through youth players. Don't get me wrong, but they still supplement that with huge big name signings where they can. And
it's not, you don't have to even go that big. Just look at Dortmund. They spent 18 million euros on Marco Reus, and look at what he's doing to the Champions League.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a balance, isn't there? There's a balance between bringing through youth players, but making sure that you bring through the best youth players. I think Arsenal bring through players and then we persist with them, forgetting that actually, if you have to wait 5 years for a player to come good in your first team and you didn't win anything in the process, so what if he's worth 30 million at the end of those 5 years? You've just wasted 5 years of fans' money going to see these players week in, week out, serving their apprenticeship at Arsenal, and then we don't get the 5 years after. Like Cesc Fabregas is the sort of player you need to be bringing into your first team. Jack Wilshere is the sort of player you need to be bringing through. Kieran Gibbs, Jenkinson, I'm not so sure. Should they be first team players? Maybe Gibbs. Should Jenkinson be our first team right back next year if Sagna goes? Not to my mind. We should be keeping Sagna on, and then he serves his apprenticeship until he's better than Sagna. But we don't do that. We kind of chuck him in at the deep end, and hope for the best.
And you think Wenger can change his approach to football, or you have to change managers to go bigger?
I don't think Wenger has got it in him to change. I think what you see with Wenger now is what you'll always have. He was a great manager in '98, 2002, 2004, but since Mourinho's come into football and changed the face of how teams operate, Wenger hasn't wanted to adapt. And you can't be great forever. And I think that it's probably time to make a change. Or if Arsene Wenger is willing to adopt a best practice approach to running a football team, and he is willing to bring in a big sports science team and use his GPS guys and get in the video analysis and do all of those things that teams like Swansea are doing, but Manchester United have got a huge team, a huge setup around. I think a manager isn't the focal point of a club like they used to be. It's the teams that sit below them, like how a business works. Like you have your CEO, but then it's the team underneath. It's about having a world-class team. The manager can't do it all. The manager's the guy who does the rabble-rousing speeches, works on tactics, but all the stuff that goes on just below, like the whole concept of marginal gains. Like Arsenal don't do that. When you had great players, that worked, but now we don't have great players, and we struggle. We're kind of in this situation where it's fourth place mediocrity. Like we don't have a squad good enough to win the Premiership or Champions League, because we don't have a squad big enough to go for those two. We don't really take the FA Cup and the Carling Cup seriously. So what do Arsenal fans want? Do you want 10 more years of seeing the same thing year in, year out, just scraping fourth or third, never winning a cup? Or do you want to see somebody who can come in and take the club to the next level, bring in some new ideas, take a fresh approach to the game, sign some big name players if you need to? I want to see an ambitious manager at Arsenal, and I don't think Arsene Wenger is ambitious anymore.
Oh, and in the ambition role, do you think Kroenke is an ambitious owner, or he's just here for the profits?
No, okay. And Stan Kroenke's got absolutely no interest in Arsenal at all. I don't know what the value of the club was when he bought it, but I'm pretty sure that he's two or £300 million up on where he was when he bought the club. I don't think Stan's approach to sport is ever going to win the Premier League for him, and if anything, he's going to end up with could end up with quite a bad situation in a few years' time. If we drop out of the Champions League and we don't have that cash injection every year, he could end up with this asset that goes downhill quite quickly. I think you need an ambitious owner. You need somebody who's actually interested in the game, who's actually interested in pushing the club forward. That's why I'm not a massive fan of Usmanov and his background, but if you look at what he's done business-wise, it's phenomenal. Like his portfolio of tech companies is absolutely outrageous. He had Facebook right at the start. He's got investments in Twitter. He had investments in Groupon. He's got the telecommunications company Megaphone that just launched on one of the UK stock exchanges. He's an incredibly successful businessman, and he's the sort of guy that you want. And he's hands off. He doesn't get involved in decisions of the boards of any of those companies. He's very hands-off. He makes sure that those companies have access to his people if they want. But that's the sort of guy you want, somebody who wants to be the very best and is willing to put in their own money. And I think that's it's great being self-sustaining, but if that doesn't win you trophies, then
what's the point?
Yeah, what's the point? If you can't beat them, spend a load of money enjoying them.
So if you had to get in bed with one of those owners, you'd go to Usmanov.
Yeah, I would have gone with Usmanov from the very start, but not from the. But when I looked at it originally, when Stan came on a few years ago, just got to look at his bank balance. I think it was $1.8 billion.
Yeah.
He was worth. That's not enough to run a football club like Chelsea
if
or
you want
Manchester
to run a City style.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't think, but it's not. $1.8 billion isn't enough to merit investing your own money. Like, why would you put in 200 million? That's a massive chunk out of your fortune. Like, you need to be mega rich to be able to do that. Usmanov is mega rich. He is
Top
rich
10 in the world or something.
Yeah, he's rich on the same sort of level as Abramovich. I think he's richer than Abramovich, and I don't think he'd come in and run it that way. I don't think that that's his style if you look at what he's done with his other businesses, but I think that he would force accountability on Arsene Wenger, and I think that that's one of the reasons Arsene Wenger doesn't spend huge amounts of money, because he's not accountable then. If he spends £60 million in the transfer window and he doesn't win the league, he's accountable, he's failed. But if he comes out with a 35 million plus, 35 million surplus, he's not really that accountable, because people go, oh, well, he didn't actually spend that money, the club's made a profit, so everyone's happy. You need someone to say, Arsene, this is a football club, here's 100 million, go out and spend it, and if you don't win something, then we'll have a chat and ask why you didn't win something. I don't think we've got that push in the club. I don't think Stan particularly wants him to go out and spend that 70 million. I don't think Ivan does. It looks like Ivan Gazidis gets bonused on whatever the profit of the club is. So you've got this really horrible situation where you've got a manager who's taking £7.5 million a year for not achieving much. You've got a CEO who's being bonused on the manager selling his best players, and you've got an owner who's just happy to see his asset appreciate every year. So there's no ambition. We don't have a big club mentality, and that could all change with a different owner overnight. That could change with a different manager, someone who did knock on the board's door and ask for more money, or ask for a bigger setup within the team. I just think we need to start acting like a Barcelona if we want to, because that's the ambition of the club. They want to be the biggest club in the world. Well, start acting like one.
So, do you think only a manager could do that by himself without a director helping him or something like that?
So kind of referencing the need for a David Dean sort of thing.
Sort of, because Gazidis look very uninterested in the football side to me.
Yeah, I think Ivan Gazidis is a really smart guy. I think he's hamstrung by the power structure that Arsene Wenger has in place. How do you come in and assert your dominance over a manager that's an absolute legend at a club? It's almost impossible. I think if we had a new manager that would come in, I think Ivan Gazidis would have a lot more power and a lot more say over things. But I think the director of football idea is a good one. I don't think David Dean's the answer. I think David Dean's nearly 70 years old.
Yeah.
He's friends with Arsene Wenger. Is that going to work? Do we need Arsene Wenger having a friend on the board, or do we actually need someone who's going to prod him in the right direction? But I think Arsenal certainly need some sort of footballing knowledge on the board, and that doesn't have to be in a decision-making position, but having someone like Patrick Vieira, who would love to come and work at Arsenal but was never offered the job, having him in a role at Arsenal, or Thierry Henry or Remy Gard, maybe not so much Remy Gard, but he's a really intelligent guy and knows the game. How wouldn't we benefit from something like that? If you don't have any footballing minds on the board, how can you make a proper decision around footballing items? If Arsene Wenger is your one footballing contact, you're going to get quite a biased viewpoint of everything. You need someone to challenge somewhere along the lines. And I don't mean interfere, but I think you need input. Like Bayern Munich have footballers all over the club, and I think
Ajax as well.
Yeah, and Manchester United as well. So you know, if it's working for all of those great clubs, maybe we should start. And I think that's what Arsenal do need to do. Have a look at what the best clubs in the world are doing, and you know, what makes Bayern Munich a great club. Why don't we take some ideas from there? You know, it's not all about us having a shiny new stadium and a great balance sheet. There's so much more to being a great football club.
Well, on the lighter side of things, how do you think local supporters see the influence of overseas supporters at Arsenal these days? With a lot of tourists and a lot of supporters clubs from everywhere coming to watch games and stuff.
I think we embrace it. I think you get some Arsenal fans that complain around, you know, the tourist type of people taking photos in the ground. But for me, if people are coming over from their country and they're spending money coming to the city, buying the merchandise, like trying to integrate with the club, that's a great thing. Like I think how can you not praise an attitude like that? You've got plenty of Arsenal supporters that live in London who never go to a game. For me, if you're going to spend £1,000 flying over and you're going to go to the stadium and you're going to sing and you're going to get involved in the culture of Arsenal, that's a brilliant thing. I think just looking on things like Twitter and seeing all of the different nationalities that get in touch every day about Arsenal and seeing the passion that people have for it overseas, I think it's absolutely amazing. I don't think there are many Arsenal fans that would turn their nose up at it. It shows that, you know, we are a global brand and we are going in the right direction, and I think it's great for Arsenal moving forward, and we should encourage more of it, because overseas revenue's massive for Arsenal, and I just hope that the last 6-7 years of nothing when it comes to trophies hasn't hit that growth too badly. And I think it's also really important that we're starting to tour in different areas. I think that was a massive move by Ivan, you know, forcing us in Wenger's hand that we've got to go on overseas tours, because there are people that never get to see Arsenal play, and you can get these guys, get them young like we do in England, then that's a support for life. That's somebody who's going to tune into Arsenal TV. That's somebody that's going to buy a package to watch Arsenal. And you know, even going to New York a few months ago, they've got like bars dedicated to Arsenal on match days where they go and watch the games at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a Tuesday. I just think that's magical. I think that's fantastic.
And who is your favourite player for Arsenal? Ever? No.
Ever? Oh, I don't know. I love Robert Perez. I think he was one of the most amazing players I've ever seen. When he joined Arsenal, I used to play Championship Manager when I was a kid, and I thought it was pronounced Robert Pires. So when he joined and I'd seen him on this computer game, I was like, this is going to be amazing. I didn't really get what he did for the first half a season. Arsene Wenger said he could be as good as Zidane. I was like, well, I'm not really sure. He looks a bit flat-footed. But then when he stepped up to that next level and he was totally unplayable, and the way he'd glide across the pitch, the way he'd score goals, the way he'd assist, he was just a magician for me. It was a shame that we didn't get sort of 5 or 6 great seasons out of him, and he was quite injury prone after he came back. But those 2 or 3 years when he was at the top of his game, he was magical to watch. But then there were so many players from that generation that were magical, like Patrick Vieira, when he used to get the crowd going with his song. Thierry Henry, I've never seen a striker like him. Even players like Tony Adams and Martin Keown. You absolutely adore those guys. It's a shame that we don't have more characters like that in the team at the moment. Which is why I think if we can keep Jack Wilshere, maybe he is that guy. He gets the crowd going. He's got the silky skills matched with that ability to really muck in and get everybody going. So
yeah, the derby when he confronted Bale, everyone went, "Wow, yeah, hit him!"
Yeah, exactly. The fan you need to get, and that's what a lot of the players miss. The crowd doesn't want to be quiet. You have to give them a reason to be noisy. Like if you show that passion on the pitch, the crowd will reciprocate, and Jack Wilshere totally gets that. He'll slam into a player, he'll get in somebody's face because everyone sees the passion, and that's infectious on the rest of the team. I wish that we had more players with Jack's fighting spirit, and maybe we will develop that over the next couple of years with the core of British players coming through.
Pedro, it's been a pleasure. I have a little gift for you. It's this year's shirt from our supporters club.
Thank you. I feel like an honorary Brazilian.
Some sort of.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much, Pedro.
Thanks for having me on. Cheers.